My name is Stephen Stanley. I'm a church planter with New Tribes Mission, and I work in the Koval tribe of Papua New Guinea. So the Koval people are a group of 1,000 people who live in the mountains of Papua New Guinea. They're about a 3-day journey from town, and so they're really isolated. They don't have access to God's word in their own language, and the only thing that reaches them is kind of a watered down churchy culture, but they certainly don't have access to God's truth. So the amazing thing about the Koval people is that they've been asking for missionaries for 10 years. About 10 years ago, a missionary team moved into a neighbouring tribe, and in that tribe the missionaries learned the language. They started teaching in a literacy program. They started teaching the Bible chronologically from beginning to end. A church was planted, and now there are members of that tribe who are trained as Bible teachers or handling God's word, starting to run the church on their own. That church is maturing. And the Koval people are looking on and they're saying, we want that. That's what we want. So I can tell you a bit about my journey, how I ended up as a church planter. I started as a brand new believer in my first year at university. And one of the implications of this new worldview that I'm starting to put together is, well, what about people who've never heard of it? And as I continued growing, studying, learning, looking through passages like Romans chapter 10, getting to understand God's missionary heart for the world, my heart was challenged. I want to be involved in bringing the gospel to people that have never heard before. I remember going to a missionary conference that NTM put on and just listening to all of the reports from the field. And there was one particular missionary, an older missionary, who had finished his work. He'd moved into a tribe. He'd, for decades, been there learning language, teaching, discipling, and now there was a church there in that people group that had never been there before. And just remembering seeing the video of them when it was time for him to leave, putting them all on their shoulders, and they were just so excited. And I'm just watching this video, this journey from beginning to end of a tribal church, and I'm like, that is what I want to do with my life. So I applied for a short-term trip with New Tribes Mission called Interface, which is a 4-week trip to Papua New Guinea, which is a exposure trip, really. So I went to Papua New Guinea, and they put on it's like a course where they teach you missionary concepts. You learn about animism, you learn about phonetics, the tools to learn language, and then you go out in the village and you actually try doing it. And the other takeaway was, there is more to this than I ever thought. Wow. I came away kind of impressed, like, yeah, these guys know what they're doing and I have a lot to learn. So I applied for New Tribes training, and I did 3 years of training. I did 1 year in Bible school, 1 year in the cross-cultural communications, and my final year in applied linguistics. And this is where they gave me the tools I needed for doing things like putting together an alphabet for a language that's never had one before. Yeah, training was really a lot of fun. I remember my Christian Union used to do these weekend aways or house parties, and training just felt like 3 years of that. It was great, and we made great friends who are now all over the world, and I met my wife there, so that's also good. After finishing training and arriving on the field, you start your national culture and language learning time, where you just get to know your host country, its culture, its language, get comfortable. And once you finish that, you can select which minority group you'll be working with, and for us, that was the Koval people. Church planting is a huge job, and it needs all kinds of people. Our mission is routinely telling people groups who are asking for missionaries, sorry, there's no one we can send, we don't have anyone. So we really need more missionaries, and I'd love to appeal to you guys to consider it. Think of it as a career, because we don't necessarily need people with skills, we need people who are committed. People who are willing to put in 2 to 3 years to learn a language and then to minister after that. It's not a short-term process, and so I'm appealing to you guys. Maybe some of you out there would love to have you come and join us, come and help us in this work.